Hey everybody, this is Amy Bernier, and you are watching Being Brave with Amy B. We've talked about lots of brave steps, big and small, throughout the weeks that we've been here. And I just want to remind you that the big, massive steps that you see people doing that are super, super brave, and you're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I could never do that. That person started with their small, being brave steps. And that's how they got to the big being brave steps. It's so frequently we don't hear the behind the scenes baby steps and like true story of what it's like to wake up and be brave and wake up and make a different choice and wake up and see what happens and go with the flow or dream a big dream. So here on Being Brave with Amy B, we're all about celebrating and acknowledging that all steps are being brave steps, and those are possible for everyone. It does not just people that are special and all of that stuff. We're all special, special snowflakes, and I mean that not in a derogatory way. It came out of my mouth, and then I was like, oh wait, there people use that to be mean. In the not mean way, everyone's a special snowflake. Yeah, and it's possible for you. So today I am so honored and privileged to have my friend Jennifer Seitzer on. She and I have actually known each other for, I don't know, like 6 to 8 years. We met on an online thing and on Facebook. And at the time, I was living in Newport, Rhode Island. So this wonderful soul has been on the journey with me from Newport all the way to Southern California and all the twists and turns along the way. So she is a compassionate, kind, empathetic, and wonderful human being. And I'm so happy to introduce her to you today by having her introduce herself. Yay! Jen,
Hi,
would you
everyone.
mind sharing your gloriousness with the world?
Thank you so very, first of all, thank you so very much for reaching out to me. It was a surprise and it was a pleasant, welcoming surprise. So thank you so much for inviting me on here. For those who don't know me, my name is Jennifer Seitzer. I've been in the online world probably starting in like 2006, 2005, 2006, before there was social media the way it is today. I've been blogging for that long, and by day, I am a health and wellness consultant and coach. And on the side, I have my Cafe Tarot Talk, which is something I started on Instagram like 2 years ago. And that has morphed into a podcast, which tomorrow it will be the third episode. So it's only 3 weeks old. So I love the tarot. The tarot's helped me. Amy knows.
I do
Amy
know,
knows.
and I want to praise Jen because I remember when she first picked up the tarot, and she's like, "I'm really into this, and it's amazing, and all of this stuff." And I was like, "Well, I don't know anything about it. Like, I would love to have a reading." So I've been one of Jen's loyal, very, very loyal clients around her readings, and I highly recommend her. Um, when you listen to someone tell you about your life and you're like, Okay, that's amazing." And then a couple weeks later, it starts coming true. I would like text or call Jen and be like, "Remember when you said blah, blah, blah?" And she'd be like, "Yes." And I was like, "It's happening." So I highly recommend her. And today we're actually, the topic of our conversation isn't necessarily tarot. However, I bet it will come up. So we're going to dive into Jen's Being Brave journey. So we're going to start it off the way that I typically start these off and ask you, what is your personal definition of being brave?
My definition of being brave is speaking up unapologetically, speaking your truth. We hear that a lot. It's almost like a catchphrase, but it really means standing up for yourself, even if your voice is shaking and your heart is beating out of your chest. Being brave is protecting one's peace at all costs. Although years ago I didn't even know what that looked like. You know, presently I understand what it is. But so being brave is making yourself a priority, no matter what anybody thinks, says, or does. Protecting your peace.
And that's why I called today's episode Brave Peace, because Nick says, I love the protecting the peace. Yes. Then this leads me into another question. What is peace to you in your experience?
Okay. I used to think that peace was sitting in, cross-legged for an hour, meditating, burning incense and candles, like your environment is important, but that's not peace, at least not, it's peaceful. It adds to the peaceful atmosphere that I can create. But the only way that I can really explain this is growing up in being born into a family of addiction and abuse. There was no peace. So all I ever did was live in chaos. And I didn't realize truly how it affected me, until adulthood, and I had my own children. And trying to find that peace. All I used to always say is, I just want peace. I just want peace. And what I started to find is that the only way that I can obtain that peace is through learning how to say no, learning how to establish boundaries, even if those boundaries are your own family members, like your own children and your parents, people that are closer than me, that mean the most to you. When I really started to learn and recognize everything that I have lived through is the complete opposite of peace. I hope I make sense. I just started to see a big contrast, because all I kept magnetizing in my life was toxic friendships and toxic jobs and relationships and marriages, and even seeing it in my own parenting at times where I had to be honest with myself. So it was getting really clear with myself. It was looking at myself in the mirror and trying to pinpoint all of the different behaviors, learned behaviors, etc., and then unlearn them, and learning that it's okay, that wanting to take care of myself isn't selfish. That contributes to my peace. I can still go.
I'm so proud of you. Yeah, I mean, why don't we paint a picture of what life was like? You've hinted at it here, but if you wouldn't mind taking the time to kind of paint the picture of your life before intentionally choosing to be brave and create your peaceful life.
Okay. Life before. I mean, I can start. I mean, an example of that, which goes way back to when I was in high school, and then I can bring it up here into the present.
That would be great.
In high school, um, getting off of the bus. I lived in upstate. When I went to high school, I was living up in upstate New York. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. But this was in upstate New York. We would take the bus to and from school. And anybody who's grown up in a household that involves alcohol and abuse will understand what I'm saying. Before my hand hit the doorknob, I innately knew if it was an afternoon or a day that I had to go straight to my room and not come out till dinner, or it was safe to at least stay in the living room, that kind of thing. And I took that all the way through middle school and high school and even through my adulthood and my kids. Life before is that I would create my life or my day to day around everybody else's moods. I would kind of gauge how they were feeling because I can feel it. And I didn't realize that this was considered triggers, or like I just knew what my gut. I always felt it in my gut and in the back of my neck. So if I felt that somebody was in a bad mood or they were sad or whatever it was, I would go out of my way to make sure that I didn't upset them, that I didn't anger them, that they were taken care of, regardless of what was going on with me, because I was just making sure that there was no conflict. That's what I was trying to avoid at all costs. And yeah, that was pretty much, that's always been my life before, was
Mm.
making sure everybody else was okay and safe and happy, and regardless of how I was feeling on the inside.
Yeah, I would just like to say, like, I really relate to that. I think we took on similar roles, and it's like what I found is you really don't realize that how you're being in the world is maybe not the best for you until you like get a little older, or like things start like they just don't seem to line up. Like, why am I attracting like this kind of dude? Or why are my friends seeming to like want to take from me all the time and I'm not getting back? Like, I would notice things and just be like, huh, um, this doesn't feel good. But again, it was like, well, but this is who I am. I'm the person that gives. I'm the person that gives. I'm the person that gives. And I also didn't realize at the time that it was coming from a place of fear. Do
Right.
you did you kind of have similar sensations and feelings and
Oh,
experiences?
yeah. What would happen is that I was so busy taking care of others that what would happen is that I wasn't expressing or speaking my truth because I was afraid to, because I was afraid that if I spoke up, those who I loved and cared about the most would leave me. So there you go. So I always made sure to just kind of stay quiet. Um, but it would start to pile up and pile up and pile up. And then when it finally would explode, which it did in not so healthy ways, then the people around me is like, what's wrong with you? Like they couldn't understand. And this was just a pattern that I couldn't understand, that I just didn't know how to get out of, number one, because I didn't know what was going on. And I mean, I do remember whether it was, and what you said about attracting certain types of relationships. I've been married and divorced 3 times. I'm just going to put it out there. My
Yep.
second marriage, which was the longest, is when I met the woman who I always say helped me save myself. She started guiding me and teaching me what abuse was and my behaviors and why I was like. She showed me how to find my voice, and when I started to do that, it got worse before it got better, because everybody was so used to me being a certain way that when I started to say no, when I started to stand up for myself, nobody liked it at all.
Yeah.
Um, but and it was scary. It was really, really scary. And I want to say something is that even though I realized that even I was attracting these kinds of relationships and friendships and jobs, I started to understand my part in it. I'm not blaming myself, but my part in where it was coming from, where it was rooted from, and I stopped pointing fingers that it's their fault and their fault and their fault. I took responsibility for the behavior that I was displaying, but at the same time understanding where it was rooted in. So it was a very long process to do that. And I still do, but now I recognize things a whole lot clearer than I did in the past.
Yeah, I remember distinctly when like this group of women, and it's so funny how it like mirrors kind of like the middle school mean girls. I remember like middle school, the adult version of the middle school mean girls like decided that they like liked me and they wanted me to be a part of their group. I think I was like in my lower 30s at this point, and I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool! Like the cool chicks like me or whatever." And and then I remember when I stopped allowing people to walk all over me, and they're like, "You've changed, like, you're different, blah, 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 blah." And I remember one of my good friends, Lisa, was like, "You haven't changed. You're not any different. You're just not willing to go along to get along anymore." And that friend really made a massive difference in my life because I was still learning like who I was and how to use my voice, and thinking, "Oh no, everybody's mad at me. That must equal um I did something wrong." Not, those people are a bunch of jerks. You made some poor choices when it came to making friends, Amy, you
Yeah,
know?
yes, yes. And I realized that the friends that I made, it's what I knew. The
Yeah.
woman I was talking about before, there's something, well, there's a lot of things that she would say to me that has still to this day has stayed in my mind. And
Is this
she
Catherine, by
remind
the way?
Catherine, yes, her name's
Ah, yes.
Catherine from
We love
Middlebury.
Catherine.
Yeah, she helped save me, save myself. But she would say something, she would always say, birds of a feather flock together. And so my level of dysfunction was going to attract that same level of dysfunction. And it's something that is unconscious because it's all we ever know, you know. And now when I look back on I actually thank them for the gift that they gave me because it allowed me to understand myself better. It also allowed me to understand what I don't want and what I do would prefer to attract in my life and what further work I might need. Because it's an ever evolving journey and process. It's a spiral.
It never ends.
You, you, one of the tarot readings, the last one, I remember you messaged me, when does it end? It doesn't. It just
I
layers
was
and
so
layers and layers.
sad.
Because you just said it just now.
Yeah.
I've had
Yep.
other people that I've done readings for ask me the same thing, and I tell them the truth. I'm like, it doesn't. It's just another layer comes off, and then it's a never-ending onion.
Yay. I think that, that being the truth, I think that, at least for me, is having people like you in my life who are also, learning and growing and being brave and trying new things and choosing to make healthier choices. Like that makes it, I don't know if it makes it easier, but the camaraderie in the process and the ability to support one another, there's just nothing like it. Like I've always said, like, I'm abundant in amazing humans. That is for sure. And thank you for being one of them. Like we've been on a
Well,
long
you
journey
too.
together and it's just gonna keep
You too.
going, going and going and going. I could get off track now with that comment, but everybody knows how I am anyway. That's why you guys love this podcast. But could you talk about like what was the like in your mind, in your experiences, like the breaking point? Like I have to change no matter what, you know, like big
Believe,
change.
yeah, believe it or not, the biggest change for me, well, it's the last year and a half, but the end of 2021, December, into the first portion of 2022, which I like to describe the dumpster fire that's been my life for the first 3, 4 months.
You have the best metaphors in the world.
Um,
Yep.
I have to. I mean, okay, so the biggest change, yeah, the explosion that the explosion that happened was the moment, and this actually, it was like the beginning of the end for me, basically. December, actually, of 2020, I took a risk in inviting or allowing my oldest son to come move in with me. And anybody that knows me long enough or has been following me on Facebook or Instagram for about 2 years, I have been sharing my journey as a mother through my son's addiction. And what ended up happening is that his addiction became my addiction, and my addiction to try fix, save, and rescue him. And so in December of 2020, on the premise that he was going to get help and everything, and he did twice in 2021, but then relapsed twice. I let him move in along with his girlfriend. And what ended up happening, just to kind of make a long story really short, because of the choices that I made, I don't blame him at all, because I made the decision, is that I ended up being evicted from my apartment. I mean, literally, I almost lost my job, a job that I've been working at for 5 years. And I came very close to being homeless. I was evicted, and luckily, I have a very close friend here in Arizona who took me in. And that's when that was my pivotal point. And I going back to the beginning of this episode here, that's when I really understood what it truly means to protect one's peace. Because presently I am in a new place. Things did end up settling out, settling down, and I got a new place and I got a promotion and a raise. But my son and some other family members do not have my address. I mean, I talked to them, but they don't have my address. I had to put myself first in a way that I never had before. And for the first time, I don't feel guilty about it. It makes me sad a little bit because it's family and that's my child, even though my child's an adult. I don't care if he's 31 or 51, it's still my child, and I'll always feel the way that I do. And I haven't turned my back on him, but the way in which I support him is far different. I don't put my health anymore at risk, whether that's my physical health or my emotional health. And for the last year, I went to Al-Anon, and for the first time, because I've been in and out of the rooms over the course of 20 something years, I actually started working the 12 steps with a sponsor in Al-Anon, and that was pivotal in me being able to finally come to terms that if I don't do something, I'm going down. I'm going to be the one who's, and there's going to be nobody there to save me. So I have to save myself. And I have to also say that in doing that, although my son is still right now in active addiction, he's taking steps all by himself to try and get help on his own. So I know that's a lot and there, but I mean, there's a lot that I can unbox, but that's kind of the main point.
Sure. Is there anything in particular that you feel like people don't talk about that you experience that you'd be willing to talk
I
about?
think, yeah. I started sharing, well, first of all, when I started sharing my story about with my son and everything. And I was given permission until I was asked to stop. And I respect my children's privacy. At the time, though, I was writing because I needed to get it out. And I used Instagram as kind of like an online journal of sorts and I really didn't care if anybody was going to read it or not. I just wanted to write. That was just the way I was expressing myself. And believe it or not, it got a lot of traction in the sense that people were messaging me and letting me know that they're going through the same thing, and, from people I didn't even know. And so I was glad to be able to touch people in that way, because first of all, I feel that addiction is shrouded in shame. Mental health is the same. So that I wasn't afraid, and I'm not afraid. When it does arise, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue telling somebody, this story, because nobody should be ashamed, because it happens. I mean, every single person I have ever talked to in my own personal life either has a relative, a child, or knows someone who is dealing with addiction. And it doesn't mean that they're that stereotype of someone living under a bridge, that stereotype that sometimes kind of conjures in our mind about an addict. I mean, there are those people, but it can be your next door neighbor, it can be your doctor, lawyer, whoever. So there's that. And then the whole thing, what we do, like I realized just how codependent and enabling I was as a parent, and the codependent relationship, the parent-child, that really hit home more than anything else. And the shame and I'll say the shame that I felt, and how I crippled my child in not being able, not that I caused him to use or drink, but, I have had to unpack and work a lot of guilt that I felt for not being a better mom in that sense. And then the addiction, I mean, not the addiction, the eviction on top of it, that really, I felt like I was just a horrible person who could not do life, and it was humiliating. But what I did is I went on my Insta stories and I just started talking, not because I wanted sympathy or pity or anything, because I know that I'm not the only one who has dealt with these kinds of things, and how those feelings of shame and embarrassment and all the stuff that comes with it. But the fact, and I have to say that at that time, because thankfully for my best friend, who's my roommate right now, we ended up having to stay in an extended day motel, because when I moved in 24 hours later, she found out that her landlord was selling the property. So I was in boxes. But what I found, and it has stayed with me, is I started looking at all of the gifts that I actually have. You were talking about friends, and I can probably cry. I was thinking about the fact that every single morning I woke up, I opened my eyes, my heart was beating. I know this sounds cliche, but this is what I was paying attention to, because everything else felt like it was crumbling around me. And instead of beating myself up like I've always done my whole life, and blaming myself for being a bad mom or a bad daughter or a bad friend or a bad whatever, I had a car that I was able to still go to and from work. I had a job. My dog, who has been, technically my son's dog, but my saving grace. And then I was just pinpointing all of the things that I truly, honestly had and what I was grateful for. And I still do it now. Like, I don't ever want to not notice those things anymore. And I'm still putting pieces together. It's, I'm learning about all of the stories I tell myself when it comes to money and abundance and prosperity and deservingness and all that stuff. So all that stuff kind of happened. But that was the pivotal moment where I'm like, nope, never again. I don't care who you are. My peace comes first. And to me now is speaking up. saying how I feel. I can still be compassionate and I can still be empathetic and I can still give unconditional love, but not at the expense of my emotional, mental, and psychological and spiritual health.
So you are using this tool of gratitude. You are aware that, some big shit that's on fire in a dumpster has been occurring in your life. Also, let's just say I totally understand how that feels
I
in my
know.
own experiences. And so there is no 0, nil, zilch judgment
Right.
coming from me. And what are the baby steps, the brave baby steps outside of gratitude? Or maybe you want to dive deeper into that as well. What were the baby steps that were brave for you? That were like the first, like, I'm gonna do this. Okay, no, I'm gonna do this. And really starting to shift things for yourself.
Okay, so when I was given papers of eviction, the first baby step, which was really hard for me, was picking up the phone and calling my friend, asking if the offer still stood, because she had always told me that no matter what, I always had a place. And I've always been the kind of person is I'll do it myself. I'll figure it out myself. I don't want to be a burden on somebody else. They have their own stuff. So I had to basically suck in my pride. And that was the first step in just picking up the phone and telling them what's going on, And when I heard her say, absolutely, it was the first time I was able to breathe a little bit freer, even though there was a whole bunch of stuff still, it was the fire, like the remnants of, like the tarot card, the tower. There was all the rubble on the
Oh man,
um,
it's happening around me. Ah. Yeah,
yeah. So that was my
yeah.
first step. And then the second one beyond to is was well, actually it was two in one, the gratitude and sharing my story on Instagram. I wanted to utilize social media in a positive way. I just wanted to share what was going on because I know somebody else out there was going through it at that time or might be going through it presently. Um, but I was also sharing how grateful I was for the people who are my Instagram family and friends and stuff who've been following me for a
Mhm.
long period of time. So yeah, gratitude. So I know when they say that gratitude can truly change your life, I know that's very cliche because it's true. Gratitude, it literally can shift you internally on a visceral level. And what that looks like what it really looks like, because we hear a lot of it. What does it look like in the everyday? At least for me, I
Yeah.
got up and I said thank you, and I would recite the Serenity Prayer, um, because the Serenity Prayer for me it always brings me back to the present moment, to my center, and it reminds me that I literally have no power over anybody or anything else except for myself. So those were the two things. That's what it looked like for me.
Hold on. You keep talking. I will mute my.
But gratitude all day long. I started carrying like a little pad, and every single thing that I was grateful for, I would write it down because I wanted to understand how to literally be in the energy and vibration of gratitude. And I know when I'm off, when I haven't been saying my prayer or I haven't been saying thank you or whatever the case is because now because I developed a habit of being grateful and saying thank you in a myriad of different ways, I end up feeling off. I don't feel right. That makes any sense. So that started to instill in me to always pay attention. The place that I have moved in, to me, I really believe with all of my heart that the universe granted this to me. Like, I couldn't ask for anything more beautiful for me because I get to see the sunrise and the sunset every single day. And I take pictures all the time. I want to remember, certain moments and in certain, that's why I start taking pictures. So that's kind of the things that I started to do is just really notice. Because even though I'm a tarot reader and I really love to get into the esoteric side of life and all that kind of stuff, I am this spiritual being in this human vessel that's living in this present lifetime right now. And it's short, it's fleeting. And I always make sure to I've learned to make sure to tell the people I love the most that I love them, that I'm grateful for them, that I appreciate them, because I don't ever want them to forget that. God forbid something happens to me or them. That's the last words or the last thoughts that I want them to know that came from me, if that makes any sense. Because I feel like I was lucky. My grandparents who passed away 11 years ago, my last memory of each of them was, I love you, Grandma. And when I saw and visited my grandfather, he had Alzheimer's and a host of other things. He remembered me, and I made sure to give him a hug, and I made sure to tell him I love you. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to give to my family, my friends, my children. So really, um, so that whole experience, that whole blowing up of the dumpster fire, really changed the way I look at love and relationships and friendships in the world. And it also, that's what matters. It really does matter. It's another thing that made me look at stuff. I've been married and divorced 3 times, and I have started from ground zero, God only knows how many times. And stuff, outside of the basics, I'm okay. I have a bed, I have clothes, I have food. The other stuff that I really would love, like my tarot cards, my tarot cards and my crystals, those are things I value. And that's why I hold on to them, because I value. And of course, tarot is something that I do on the side. So I love to have that. I mean, I do believe in having beauty, at least for me. I'm a Taurus. I love to have beautiful things around me, but I've also understood minimizing doesn't mean that we have to live without and deprive ourselves. It's just what matters most to us. So every single solitary thing that I own right now after all of this matters to me. It has value. I don't just buy things just to acquire more stuff.
Yeah, no, I understand. I was doing the video for the group coaching program I'm in, and Nick Smith, who's in the comments, is the facilitator, the leader, the primary coach for that. And I was like looking around and I'm like, everything that I have here is something that I love. And when I originally got my own place in Denver, that then turned into its own kind of itchy dumpster fire, I loved everything. And when I, you know, sold it all, it was hard because it was the everything meant so much to me, and the things that I have kept in my car for I don't know how long, years at this point, a year. It's been a year since I left that Denver
I
apartment.
still have stuff in my van. I still have boxes that I have not taken out yet. Part of it is laziness,
It's
but the
okay. When you're ready, you'll do it. I mean, it's really interesting. I think Jenn, you and I have had this conversation about like unpacking. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know how many different places I've stayed, like with friends or whatever, renting, whatever the case may be, I know Jen is like this too, because we've had conversations about it, but like I don't really fully unpack or like take the time to create my space as mine as my home, because there's this sneaky, in the past, let's say that in the past, there's been this sneaky belief system that, it's happened a billion times, I'm not going to be here long. Not because I don't want to, but because something's going to happen. So, what was your story behind keeping the boxes packed up?
The
Do you know?
apartment, yep, yeah, I do. The apartment that I had that I was evicted from, I was there for a little under 3 years.
Not this
And
time.
what? Oh, not this
Sorry,
time.
Nick wrote
No,
not this
no,
time. Not this
no, no, no.
motherfucking time. Home. For you
I
too. That's
realized
for both of us.
exactly. What I realized, and this was kind of in the middle, like maybe 2.5 years in or 2 years in, I realized that I still have things. Well, part of it is because I didn't have a lot of furniture because I gave it all away basically in my divorce. But I also realized that I did not take the time to invest in new things, like in bringing in like a dresser or whatever it was. And when I really started digging, I realized that growing up, my family, they struggled financially and we got evicted so many times. So my fear had been is that if I make this my home, I'm going to get thrown out, I'm going to get evicted. And now when I think about it, I was like, did you manifest that into your life? Because that's a subconscious fear that I didn't even know was there. But now with this place, I mean, yes, I do have stuff in my van, but it's like shoes and stuff, my books. But I'm putting
Oh,
art on the
shoes
walls.
out.
What?
Now, every time I talk to you, I'm going to be like, are your shoes still in your car? Because I know that I have a bag full of my shoes in my closet. I just took it from my car, and it's in the closet. I think that unpacking is a vulnerable choice.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm like laughing at something you can't see. Oh hell no, Gina, I'm staying. We're staying. We're staying. You know,
Oh yeah,
and
I made it known to the universe. This is my home. This is my home. I'm staying. There's no way I will figure it out. And I have been figuring it out. And I have been unpacking. As a matter of fact, I don't have a bedroom set anymore, but I went to and picked up one of those like closet organizers that you can put inside your closet. So I have my clothes are put away and organized, and I am actually picking out colors and decor and things like that. So I'm unpacking, and the more that I unpack, the more free I feel, honestly. So
hmm. I'm just so proud of you. I mean, we could probably have like hours and hours worth of podcasts, but we've just seen each other through so many things. And Jen's one of the people that I reach out to when I'm like, "Ah, oh my God, I don't even think I can tell anybody the truth about what's going on." You have those few people that like you're just like, "Oh God, I'm gonna tell you what's going on," and and it feels so horrible, and I'm afraid to tell you because you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that's what's happening for you," And what's funny is, like, I know that Jen, when you were in the extended day hotel, there was a part of you that was like, "Well, Amy's done this, so I can too." And I have to tell you, like, as much as, the journey of figuring it out of allowing it to unfold, of being open, of asking for what you need, of feeling your feelings, of, reaching out to people. Like, hearing you say that when you share that with me in some ways makes it worth it, because someone that I know and love was able to say, it's possible. This isn't the end of the line. Like, you can move through this.
Yep.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me, because I think so frequently, you go through stuff and you become that resilient person that everybody knows. And I think that there's a mistaken belief that because you're resilient, that it's like no big deal, that you're just like, oh, well, I'm used to this, you know? And
Yeah.
on some level, you're used to, you know, going with the chaos, like making it work for you or whatever. But like ultimately, like we're all just like kids that want to have a home and other kids to play with, and and so it isn't this experience of not feeling like things aren't hard anymore. It's getting practiced at having things be hard,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
hearing you talk about resilience, I mean, there's something very positive in that, but I realized that yes, I can be resilient, I can persevere, and I can be very persistent. But there came a point, it's like, you know what? I don't want it to be resilient. I just want peace. Like you were saying, and to me, and I remember actually it's funny that you're doing this episode with me on this day because I saw my Facebook memories year ago this day is when I started going to Al-Anon, and I walked in there because I was looking for peace. That's all I realized, even when I was a young child. And as I started getting a little older into high school, I realized that I've been repeating that my whole life. I just want peace. I just want peace. And I think a lot of people think that peace is outside of us somewhere. That's why I was saying the incense and all the other stuff, which is peaceful. But truthfully, and I'm still learning that true, honest peace is inside. It's here. And in order to get that peace, in order to be able to even enter that space, I had to shut off all of the external noise, meaning I had to turn people away. I had to say no. I had to shut off my phone and not answer it for a while. I just had to sit and just be. Peace is the purpose. Yeah, it was. And it is still my purpose in life. And like I even share that now. Like, because I really believe with all my heart, every single person deserves peace. If anything, peace, the vibration, the energy of peace and of love. I know that sounds very hippie, and I'm hippie at heart, but it's the
But it
truth.
doesn't. But it doesn't sound hippie. It sounds like being a human. We
Hmm.
need connection. And I think that maybe you can relate to this too, is for a really long part of my life, I was just preparing for the other shoe to drop all the time. I remember just wishing I was a robot, and that pretending I was a robot, and like wishing that like things didn't hurt so badly. And I think I don't want, I work with kids and adults, and I never want a kid to want to be a robot, aside from like wanting go-go gadget arms or something like that. But I never want a child, or the child within someone, to feel like they wish they could be a robot so they couldn't feel because things were so hard, you
Yes, I
know?
agree with you.
And
Hmm.
and I think that the opposite of the opposite of wanting to be a robot is to want to feel safe, to feel all of the things, and to be able to handle it, and to be able to create the sense that everything's going to be okay, and peace and love are integral parts of being able to have a good life, a life
Yeah,
out of survival mode. Like, for God's
right.
sakes, like,
Yeah,
I'm
no, I
learning
agree.
I'm learning, and I think, you've been learning, or you've been teaching around this for a while, is how do you support yourself, in multiple ways as you're healing. I know that you've worked with nutrition and essential oils and all sorts of things, but what I'm realizing is, my body, first and foremost, my physical body is impacted by the times as I'm letting peace unfold within me. The amount of times that I get triggered and, like, turn into the opposite of peace, it's more noticeable now because it's it isn't like my normal. It's starting to, like, kind of unravel, but
Hmm.
my physical body, like, the repercussions of being in survival mode and getting triggered and having a trauma response in my physical body, can last days, you
Hmm.
know? Have
Yeah.
you have you found, like, in your awareness journey, in your healing journey, there are things that you notice now, like, maybe acutely, like, for me, my body is just, like, screaming at me, that's the way it feels. Have you noticed a shift in your awareness around other things that you didn't necessarily know were being impacted?
Um, it's funny you should mention that. I just last week, the 14th of May, is my mom's birthday, and my son lives with her. They live together, and that's a whole other podcast episode. But I went to go visit. I went to go visit, and I was only there for maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours. And what you said, I had an acute awareness. First of all, walking in, I had an acute awareness literally of the atmosphere. Before anybody said anything, just the atmosphere was heavy. And it was heavy, and it was the only word I just kept feeling was sadness, just a very, very, very heavy sadness. And as I was driving home, there's a certain point where I know that I'm away from that part of town and I'm more towards here coming to my house. And I know this sounds crazy, but physically, it literally, almost felt like something lifted out of my system. So I never noticed it that acutely before. And so this has become my oasis. It's because I created my own space. Like, literally, my own space is where I live, my community. Like I said in the beginning, they don't have my address, and that's for a reason. Maybe I'm hoping to God, and maybe in the future that might change, but for right now, I can't do it, because my body does take a toll. It takes a hard toll. Um, and I don't want to, I make the conscious choice, no more, no more, no
Mm.
more. I can't, and even if my siblings, who I love more than life, um, don't agree with me, that's okay too. I've gotten to the point where I don't worry whether somebody agrees with my decisions or not. I can only do so much. And like I said, I protect my peace at all costs, and I'm still learning. I'm not an expert by
Yeah.
any means.
Yeah, no, I think we're all still learning, and I think that that's a really great thing to be honest about, Like, every moment is a new moment, a new
Hmm.
possibility arises. And within that, like, we've never been here before. I forget who of my friends says that. I can't remember. But if you're watching this and you say that, tell me and I'll give you credit for it. But we've never been here before in this moment. This is a unique moment, and we get to give ourselves grace. We get to give ourselves love and acceptance, and we get to do what's best for ourselves and see how that plays out as we, advocate for ourselves and choose what we want and leave other things behind. And um yeah, it's all part of it.
And that's what I incorporate now into my tarot readings. That the tarot was actually in the last 4.5 years has played an integral part of my healing journey, because I look at the readings, the cards in a very different way than, I guess, I'm not there to tell someone's fortune or someone's future. That's not how I use the cards. I use it for personal and spiritual growth, and what I learned. So when I started getting more proficient in being able to understand the reading the cards, I pulled away from it for a while because I was doing readings on the side. And the reason why I pulled back is because I was like, I don't want to be your stereotypical. Now, there's nothing wrong with other readers because I have a lot of respect I have ones that I really love. But I sat down with myself and I asked myself, why do you want to do this? Like, why do you want to offer this? Because I want to help people. And I know for me, like,
Mhm.
I've had traditional therapy and counseling too. I've had, like you were saying, I've incorporated a myriad of different tools to help me grow. And one of the things that I am most fascinated with is the tarot cards when you connect them to the archetypes. Because each and every single person carries each and every single part of an archetype. Some are more prominent than others, and I don't know. It's just something that has helped me along the way. So I've incorporated that to help others, understand their own patterns as well, in
Mm,
addition to whatever else they're doing.
yeah. Well, this is a perfect segue into sharing with people how you love to serve others. If you wouldn't mind taking a little bit of time and just sharing how you serve others, how you love to serve others, and where they can find you in the internet world, so that anybody that's listening and is like, oh my gosh, like she's speaking my language. These are things that I would love support with. And Jenn is the perfect person to support you. I want people to know like where to find you so that they can reach out.
Well, my playground is Instagram. I mean, I am on Facebook also because I have it connected. So, for those who are interested in following me on Instagram, you can look up Cafe Tarot Talk. But the handle is at Jenn Seitzer. That's my Instagram handle. But you can also type in Cafe Tarot Talk. I still offer readings. Right now, I am working on a website so I can actually have it in one place. Most of the time, when people want to connect with me, they will message me through Instagram. But I do have a Cafe Tarot Talk Facebook page where I set up appointments. So if somebody wants to book an appointment, I do have days and hours that I'm available. And that's really the reason why I don't say tarot reader. I mean, I am a tarot reader, but somebody I don't read. I wish I can remember who told me this, but they called me a tarot consultant because they felt that they did not get a tarot reading, that they got spiritual guidance. So that is, if that kind of gives you an idea of what I do. Um, I really dive deep into the cards. And a lot of the
Jen is
time,
my personal reader, everybody. She's mine. I highly
most,
recommend her with
thank you.
everything that I have within me. She's amazing. You won't feel like if if like a dumpster fire is happening in your life right now and you're like, what the hell? Like you could get a
Uh,
reading from Jenn and actually get guidance in order to feel like it's part of the process. Like feel that you haven't fucked up and that's why this is all happening, you know? Like it's all
yeah.
part of learning and growth and soul stuff and like all of that. And sometimes you just need a reminder that it's part of it. And to
Yeah.
me, Jenn is like has this beautiful ability to like communicate in a way where you can receive the information, like even if it's not, what you want to hear per se, she just really uses uses her words and her personality and her energy to allow you to like see a bigger picture with compassion as opposed to, you know, hating on yourself and judging on yourself all day long. Like she won't that you can't do that when you're in her presence. So,
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
you're welcome.
Um, Cafe Tarot Talk actually came from weekly collective readings that I did on, I still do. I took a break for a while, but they're back. I do weekly collective readings. I also do new moon and full moon and eclipse readings on my Instagram. And I just started 3 weeks ago, I started a podcast called Cafe Tarot Talk. And it is a solo podcast. And I'm now, tomorrow's episode that airs is the essential oils in the tarot. And then I focus on the Fool archetype and how you can connect that and create, because last week was the Fool archetype. So I'm going through all the archetypes. I do have bonus episodes. I've already connected with people that I'm going to be interviewing. My interviews are going to be a little bit different because being that it is a tarot podcast, you would automatically think that I would seek out other tarot readers, and which I will. I do have like a dream guest list. But as I've been learning and diving more into the archetype, I want to connect with everyday people, and because like people that I know who are artists and musicians and coaches and healers, and like to see what these archetypes look like in real time through art, through other people, not just things that we see in books, because we ourselves, because sometimes we don't see what others see. So I'm really excited. I have a bunch of people that I'm going to be reaching out to, and they're not in any particular order. So those are the things I'm doing right now. And I do have a website that I'm working on and a blog that I'm coming, so right now, those are the things. I have my podcast, my Instagram, my Facebook, my readings.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And I'm so excited that you're doing this with the archetypes and everything because, like having been your friend for a while now, like I know what happens when you start talking about that stuff. And like when you talk about it, like it's like this like spark of light like happens and it's so cool, and I can be like, I don't understand what you're talking about, but I'm going to listen and learn, and I do, and I learn things about myself through you showing up and sharing your passion with other people. So I'm your biggest fan, obviously, and thank you so much for being on Being Brave with Amy B.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
My pleasure. For those of you that are listening, if you feel like a draw to Jenn at all and you're like, "Ooh, I wonder how she does her tarot card readings differently than the way I've experienced it," I would love for you. She has my 100% recommendation. She is my person when it comes to this stuff. Um, please reach out to her. Please ask for a reading. Please pay her all the money because she's a genius at this. And
Thank
all that
you.
said, you're welcome. I can't stop telling you how great you are. Oh man. Ugh, my my toxic trait is that I can't stop telling people how awesome they
Well,
are.
we
Oh,
feel
I
the
crack
same
myself
way
up.
about you.
For those of you that are watching and you want to continue to see this podcast, there are lots of different ways to share the love. And that can be found in the post itself. You can check out the digital course, Being Brave, Finding Your Voice as a Leader. You can find the Patreon link. You can find the link to buy a t shirt that says, Being Brave is the new perfect and Say Yes to You, as well as more t-shirts are coming, like Savage AF and more. This podcast thrives through you liking, loving, and sharing this with people that you love and adore. It's really all about having the conversations that, share the entire story, the whole Being Brave story, not just the I have this result and now I'm, there. As we all know, there is no there. We want there to be a there, but there isn't. And it's really important for us to all feel seen in our journey, whether our journey is the dumpster fire or whether the journey is integrating gratitude integrating gratitude into our practice and taking, brave steps every day. All of it is part of this longer life adventure that we're all going on. So if you're interested in supporting this podcast, check out the post. There are so many different ways to support us. And until next time, I see you, I believe in you, and I love you. And don't forget to be brave and say yes to you, all the parts of you.